Hi, welcome to a news episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adeep Mahmood, with my normal co-host, Hunter. And today we're going to be talking about the Olympics, which have started in the last few days, some new NFL quarterback contracts, and also the MLB Trade Deadline, which has kind of really been becoming really active in the past couple days. So in the Olympics, basically the medal count as of right now, United States have led is in the lead with 10 total medals, with 2 gold, 5 silver, and 3 bronze. And right now, Australia actually has the record, the lead right now in gold and 4. They have 6 total, 4 gold. What have you seen from the Olympics so far?
I mean, I was watching a little bit of the water polo, man. I don't know how those guys do it. Just swimming around, even playing a sport while doing that. You got to have so much endurance, so much stamina, the best conditioning ever, just because I feel like people would tire it out really quickly. But these guys, it looks like some of them aren't even breaking a sweat out there with how great they are. So that sport is so much fun to watch. I did see Team USA in basketball. They beat Serbia today. They beat Nikola Jokic in Serbia. Kevin Durant was just going off. He did not even miss a single shot from three-point range. LeBron James had a great game. Steph Curry played pretty well. It was funny seeing the French crowd boo Joel Embiid basically every time he touched the ball. But the U.S., bit of a slow start. They were down 10-2 in the first quarter, but they come back, win by 20 plus. That's the best I've seen them play. They were not playing that well during their tune-up games or friendlies, whatever you want to call them, but they took Serbia to the woodshed as that game went on. They woke up. When this team wakes up, they can beat anyone in this competition by 20 plus. And I still expect the U.S. to win the medal with that, to win the gold medal, excuse me. And that, have you seen the whole Canada drone scandal, Adeep, that's kind of been plaguing a
No,
little bit?
I think I heard about it, but it wasn't like was it soccer? Like
Yeah,
the
the woman, Canada women's team was using drones to spy on like opponents. Like they were doing it before the game against New Zealand. Their head coach has been suspended for a full year, and an analyst and assistant coach as well. So that whole thing has been going on as well. The U.S. women's team has been playing well in the Olympics so far. Also, the men, they got a 4-1 win over, I believe they also played, funny enough, they played New Zealand as well. Then they'll play Guinea in their final group game. And if the U.S. wins that, which, I mean, they should here, they'll advance to the quarterfinals for the men. I believe this is a U23 team, or just a lot of the younger players are playing in this. You're not seeing Balogun, Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Sergino Dest, Matt Turner. You're not seeing those guys. You're seeing a lot of the younger guys and some of the other players from the MLS. But the U.S. did get a nice win in the soccer game there. But it's fun seeing all these different sports, and it gets me excited also for 2028 when the Olympic Games will come here and the debut, of flag football. But that's really some of the stuff from the Olympics I've noticed so far. What about you?
Nothing really too noteworthy. I mean, they just started so far. I mean, obviously, United States, 7 of their medals have come from swimming events, which obviously makes sense. Water polo was definitely a lot of fun. I think I watched the first one. It was like a U.S. versus Greece. U.S. kind of crushed Greece a little bit there, but yeah, I'll watch more of it later. But yeah, it's definitely what I expected. But so we'll move on to NFL. Basically, so with the NFL, we've had a couple of contracts out there. Jordan Love signs and Tua both signed $200 million plus contracts. Lamar Jackson, we know we had the whole quarterback contract drama with him. He's now the 6th highest paid quarterback.
I mean, the quarterback market right now is ridiculous. I think all of these teams are so spooked by what Patrick Mahomes is doing that they're all rushing to like lock up their guys. And like, don't get me wrong, I like Jordan Love. I think he's a really good quarterback, but he had one good season and you're giving him that much money. Like, sure, he can repeat that. I mean, he actually very well might this year, but that's based off one good year. Tua Tagovailoa, I like him, but are they going to win a Super Bowl with him? I personally, I don't think so. I could get old takes exposed with that, but I don't think so. I think he's good enough to lead them, into the playoffs, but I don't think he's going to go into Kansas City and beat Patrick Mahomes. I don't think he's going to go up to Buffalo and beat the Bills up there either, or maybe even the Ravens, for example. It's just they're so spooked by some of these long-term contracts you've seen, like a Joe Burrow now, like a Lamar Jackson, like a Patrick Mahomes, that the middle, like it's like the middle ground. They don't want to wait for the next quarterback class, and they don't want to get cheap quarterback production. They just want to lock up their guys. And you also saw this with Trevor Lawrence. I like Trevor Lawrence, but is he that good? No, I don't think he's worth that type of contract. So, like, it feels like these teams feel like they have no choice just because of what's going on with some of these legitimate, actual top 5 quarterbacks in the league. But what do you think about those two moves and just the direction of the quarterback market right now?
Fear of the unknown is greater than fear of risk, is how I would describe it.
Okay.
Because in reality, if we were to be honest, $50+ million, we can probably count on one hand how many quarterbacks probably deserve that much.
I can probably only give you 3.
Right. And here's the thing. Here's the kicker. Dak Prescott hasn't signed his contract yet.
Yep.
And, I mean, look, here's the issue. You know the fear of the unknown is there when Daniel Jones signs his contract. And yet, the Packers, and I think Jordan Love is going to be good. I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. But he is not a top 5, top 6 quarterback. He is basically there to be good enough that you don't have to look for the future. But he's not good enough that he can start for you over the next 10+ years. And I think this was a bit of a panic move by the Packers to sign Jordan Love. Luckily, a lot of their receivers are on rookie contracts. So it's not like – so it's still – you could do it. Tua, I think Tua's fine. I think Tua is carried by a bunch of – I think he's carried to a degree by the talent around him. And it's going to be really interesting to see what this means for Tyreek Hill's contract. Because, he's going to be wanting a new contract at some point soon. Look, I think that there might be some talks in the next CBA about these quarterback deals because 50, 55, 60 million, it is going to be insane. And I think what it's doing is you're kind of cutting off your ability to sign the rest of the players. Because the more money you pay for your quarterback, the less money you pay for other positions. It's insane with these numbers. Do I think it will work out? I think, but I also think, like I said, Lamar Jackson's now the 6th highest paid quarterback out there. The biggest winner of these contracts is whoever the next guy is, like whoever's the next quarterback who signs contract.
Dak Prescott now. Yeah.
So I think our teams are going to be fine with it. Yeah, I think in hindsight, teams are going to be fine with it. I think it will work for these teams. I think that Jordan Love will keep the Packers competitive. I think Tua would keep the Dolphins competitive. CJ Stroud's going to make a boatload of money. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, Stafford, I think, has signed his Jared Goff signed an extension, I believe, recently. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. But also, you kind of win in a way because the next guy that signs the contract will be like, okay, great. At least my quarterback's not the highest paid guy anymore. At least I got it done before the next guy. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what this does. And I think the Cowboys, this is more leverage on Dak Prescott. That's the first thing. That's the other thing. It's more leverage on Dak Prescott. Oh, yeah, by the way, CeeDee Lamb needs a new contract as well. You got to pay at least those guys. You got to pay at least one of those guys. So I think if you're the Texans, you better win now because Diggs, I know they traded for Diggs. I know they gave Stephon Diggs a big contract. But what's going to happen what's going to happen if once he gets the once Stroud gets paid, you're going to lose guys like Diggs. Brock Purdy is once Brock Purdy gets paid, what's going to happen there? And I think this is where it gets interesting, how this impacts the receiver market, because once these quarterbacks start getting paid and the receivers are starting getting paid, now you're going to start to see some other issues there. So it's going to be interesting, but again, it's just going to be really. We can move on next thing, but will be interesting when we talk about Dak Prescott on his contract. By the way, also before we move to MLB Trade Deadline, Christian Darrisaw wasn't reported, but as Virginia Tech alumni, we are talking about. He's a former guy from Virginia Tech. 4 years, $113 million, $77 million guaranteed money. Good for him. Two-star guy. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he a two-star recruit?
Yeah, not really many people wanted him out of high school, and he turned that into a hell of a collegiate career with Virginia Tech, and now he's getting a boatload of cash overall. So I'm so thrilled for him.
Yeah, and if I am a little distracted, the Orioles just beat the Padres. That's why I am a little distracted. It was a little eventful on that one, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting on that one. But yeah, I think to conclude my thoughts, it's interesting how far this quarterback market's going to go. It's going to be dependent on, it's going to have an impact on the CBA talks. Then the next position we're talking about here is receiver, and that market's going up, and offensive linemen's going up. So it's going to be really interesting to see how front-loaded these teams are going to be and which teams take advantage, because obviously there is the play on field and then there's the structure, financial structure of the team. And in basketball, you could pay someone $60 million a year because there's less players. In baseball, you have prospects. So you can pay guys $30, $35 million a year, and then fill out the rest of the team with minor league talent and waiver claims and everything else. In football, I don't know if football is the best sport where you can have, you see what I'm saying? Like, all of these positions getting this guaranteed money over time. Like, yes, you have TV deals, but the TV deals kind of increase at the same rate as these natural extensions. So it's going to be really. Do you fear that the NFL rosters might be front-loaded in terms of payment, in terms of like which guys get paid more?
I mean, I think at some point, especially as the salary cap continues to go up, I mean, this is the biggest I think I've seen the NFL salary cap ever. So I do think, getting more money at first and then, spreading out a little bit long-term down the road, you could see that, just because you see that a lot in baseball too. A lot of those teams just kind of defer the contracts until, really late overall. So I wonder if you see something like that at some point in the NFL. But
July 1st. It's always July 1st.
Yes. But yeah, we could see it, especially as, again, the salary cap continues to go up.
Yeah, so let's move on to the MLB trade deadline. Obviously, we haven't seen any of the major trades. It's really interesting. So, like, Tarek Skubal, I don't think he's getting moved. Garrett Crochet. Before we talk about this, what are your thoughts on this whole thing of Garrett Crochet is not going to pitch in October? Like, when he gets traded, because he has an innings limit, so he doesn't want to be put in the bullpen to preserve his innings. And apparently, there's something about an extension for him to pitch in October. What are your thoughts on like that type of demand, and how do you think that impacts his trade market?
I mean, I still think teams are going to go after him just because, he can help them get into the playoffs overall, because that's what's most important. You got to get to the dance first. But, as for October, if they're able to work something out, then yeah, still go after him. Like, I think they're going to be able to figure something out for him, despite, obviously with the bullpen situation and all that, where he can still give that contending team innings. I don't think this is going to be like a Strasburg situation where like a pitcher gets shut down for like the entire playoffs or something like that. But I think they'll be able to figure out something where he at least gets some innings. So I'm honestly not too concerned about it. I think if he does get dealt, you'll see a team give up quite a bit to get him.
Yeah, before I go on my thought, and then obviously if we talk about some of the early trades. I mean, obviously Chaz Chisholm to the Yankees with 3 minor leaguers. The Padres trading 3 of their top 15 prospects for the 7th inning arm or 8th inning arm for the Rays. Like, not even their closer. I thought that was insane. The Rays, by the way, have traded yes, they've gotten talent, but they traded Isaac Paredes, who is their lone all-star, Jason Adam, who was a bullpen piece from Zach Eflin to the Orioles, and Randy Rosarena. I mean, that is interesting seeing the Rays like make those trades. The Rays making the trades that they made. It's like, and then you have obviously like it's Tanner Scott still hasn't been traded yet. The Philly, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what have you seen? What are your thoughts on the trade
The
deadline?
Phillies made a big move. I mean, and why not? Like, they're in it to win it this year. I know they gave up quite a bit in that trade, but they're in it to win a World Series. They've come really close over these last few years. Banners hang forever, so they're really not too concerned overall when it comes to that. You have teams like the Chicago Cubs. I feel like they're doing kind of a half buy, but also a half sell at the same time, just because they're still under 500 right now. They're not really committing to either direction. I think they're just kind of trying to set up their organization for more long-term success. They just look towards the future a little bit overall. I'm curious to see what a team like the Pirates does, though. They've been rumored to be in on a few players. They haven't really done anything yet. To me, you got a top 5 pitcher in baseball. Go out and get him a bat. Like, the National League is so weak. You have an opportunity to get into the wild card. I don't know what they're waiting for. It doesn't really make much sense. The Nationals have made a couple trades. Hunter Harvey, of course. Jesse Winker got dealt to the Mets for a young prospect from the Mets. Has a decent ERA. It looks like he was one of their top 25 prospects in their system. So I'll take it. But I'm just glad that Winker was able to at least give us a return. He only signed for $2 million during the offseason. He came in, did what everyone wanted him to do, boosted up his value. Now he's going to a team in the Mets who will try to, go on a potential run in October. So, I wish him the best in New York, even though, again, I'm obviously not a big fan of the Mets. I'm really curious what else the Nationals potentially do. There's been rumors about Kyle Finnegan. Their asking price is apparently even higher than the one that the Phillies paid for recently, which, I mean,
estimates for
yeah, apparently that's the rumor that the Finnegan asking price is about that, if not more. So I think it's going to take a lot to get Finnegan out of Washington, rightfully so. I think he's one of the better closers in baseball overall. But, it's been fun seeing the stove get a bit hot, and I expect it to probably be even hotter Monday and then obviously on Tuesday.
Yeah, let me first talk about a little bit the guys the Orioles got. So, first one, all right, let me just say this with Austin Hayes. Apparently, there is a rumor out there that Austin Hayes wasn't happy, especially in the past month or so. And this is not a sign of issues with the Orioles. This is more of we have a bunch of prospects we want to play. We want to get playing time. We have a bunch of veterans that don't exactly have the highest value. We want to balance out the veterans and the prospects. But to do that, we have to platoon some of these veterans. A Mountcastle, a Mullins, and Austin Hayes. That's why you're seeing in the reports the Orioles could trade Ryan Mountcastle or Cedric Mullins. It's not because it's because, one, I think they could probably get some of the pieces using their players instead of key prospects. But the second thing is, if you trade like Ryan Mountcastle, O'Hearn goes to first. Kobe Mayo, who has like 23 home runs in AAA and is overdue to be in the majors, that would be the easiest way for him to come up. And then later on, Jackson Holiday, because you still have to Ramon Urias card to DFA him. So that's the reason why they want to play these prospects. Here's the problem. Austin Hayes is not in his 30s. He's 27, 28 years old. He's in the position where he should be trying to get paid. He's not going to get paid with the way he's being used right now in Baltimore. So I think he was a little upset, and you could kind of tell with his comments. He didn't say he was upset, but there was some turmoil, some minor turmoil. I wonder if the same thing's going on with Ryan Mountcastle. I can imagine Ryan Mountcastle, if he were to be traded somewhere else, like if he were to be traded to like a San Francisco Giants or Tampa Bay, and he were to get an everyday opportunity, he would make far more money on his next contract than if he stayed what he was doing right now in Baltimore. And I love Ryan Mountcastle. I don't want to see him go. But logically, Kobe Mano is your future. Sam Basayo is your future. You got to make room for these guys. You have to be unemotional. You have to be almost robotic. You have to be analytical. And you have to use like the algorithm and everything else with that. So if you see the reports, like I'm sure you may have saw the reports, the Orioles are willing to move Mountcastle or Mullins. That's why. It's just purely to get their prospects up. They like those guys. I don't think Mullins goes. Pache is interesting, but he's just like a pinch runner, which, by the way, Jorge Mateo had like a left elbow dislocation. Apparently it was swelling. We don't know if he needs surgery, so Pache probably replaces the speed there. So then they made a couple trades. Seranthony Dominguez, relief arm. Craig Kimbrell's been a little shaky as a closer, but Seranthony Dominguez does have that experience. Maybe the 7th, 8th inning arm for him. Maybe some closing opportunities for him. I already talked about Pache. Zach Eflin was a really smart move. Does not walk anyone. Good, safe pitcher, better than Jack Flaherty. And here's the kicker. Do you think the Angeloses would have said, okay, that's fine. We'll pay him $18 million. We'll pay the $18 million that's owed to him next year. Do you think the Angeloses would have done that?
No, I don't.
Rubenstein is saying he's willing to do that, and I think that's the big thing. That's the ownership is now willing to take bad contracts or inflated contracts if it helps the team. Which brings me to the next point. They're not going to go out and get Skubal or Crochet. Let's get that out of the way. But you know who I also would not be shocked, and this is Bowden kind of alluded to this in the report. Apparently, they're super interested in Blake Snell. The Orioles are interested in Blake Snell. And the reason why I think it is possible now, because of what I just said. Eflin just got the $18 million. They're paying Eflin $18 million, and they're fine with it. Blake Snell, if he exercises his player option for next year, it's $38 million. I don't know if they're willing to take the 18 and $38 million, but if you want to make a statement saying that this ownership is different, you are saying if it takes $38 million next year, even though you still have to sign Corbin Burns, you do that. And I think the price tag for Blake Snell is going to limit his value. And I think the Orioles are looking for a left-handed starter. Do not be surprised if the Orioles agree to a deal with Blake Snell, for Giants for Blake Snell, and if Ryan Mountcastle or Kyle Stowers are part of that deal. Because if you trade Ryan Mountcastle, maybe you don't have to trade a top prospect or like even a mid-level prospect for Blake Snell. And then if you do that, you go into the postseason and you have Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin as your starters with Kramer as your 5. I feel way more confident in that rotation than I would Corbin, Grayson, Dean Kramer, Albert Suarez. I feel more confident. And the other thing with Blake Snell is if you let Corbin walk, or if he's hell bent on 9 years, maybe you offer Blake Snell a 5-year deal. And then he takes it, and now we have a starter. Like, you have a guy you trust. So it's definitely, that's an interesting name. Tanner Scott, I don't know. I think Tanner Scott's going to be an interesting guy. I think he's going to be traded. Fetty's going to be traded. I was going to say, like, with Finnegan being quiet, with the Nationals being quiet, like, do you think Finnegan's going to get moved, or do you think it's be someone like Dylan Floro, or another or like a Lane Thomas type?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a Dylan Floro, Lane Thomas situation. They were playing Dylan Cruz in right field this past weekend. I wonder why, Adi. That's what I was like. Why would they do that? Just because I feel like Lane Thomas will get dealt with these next couple of days, and it won't be long. I feel like until Dylan Cruz is probably up here. I would guess August, September, something like that. But I don't think Finnegan is going to get moved unless they get a King's ransom back. I think it's going to have to be similar to that Phillies move that they made. 3 top prospects, and maybe a little bit more for just because of how great Finnegan's been. But I think it's going to be someone more like Lane Thomas, Floro, etc.
Yeah, I think that's going to be. I think if I'm looking for someone to trade, like a relief arm trade, like Dylan Floro would be really interesting. Like
He did give up his first homer of the year today, a walk-off home run to Paul Goldschmidt, but he has not been bad. Like, that was only his first home run given up all year, and we're at July 28th. He does not give up a long ball.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I think, and I know a lot of Orioles fans are saying, "Hey, go out and trade for Tanner Scott, go out and trade for Kyle Finnegan, go out and trade for established closers." Maybe if they make a deal with the Giants, you could go out and get Camilo Doval, their closer, and Blake Snell. Camilo Doval would be a great addition, like 100+ mile per hour cutter. Like, he was an All-Star last year. He has like a 4 ERA this year, but he's someone that you could slide into that bullpen. And I think the Orioles are going to make 1 or 2 more moves. Do you think the Nationals will make like over under 1.5 trades for the Nationals next few days? I think
I'll go 2.
Okay.
2.
So you think okay. So you think Lane Thomas and maybe a relief arm?
Yeah, maybe like a Floro. Yeah, that's probably it. They're really not going to sell that much this year, They did Hunter Harvey, Jesse Winker. They're really not selling that much just because a lot of their players are long-term core pieces. So yeah, I don't think they're going to be making too many more moves.
And I think teams to watch out for, Tampa Bay could be interesting because they have Pete Fairbanks as another, like, their closer. He's a trade option. But like we covered, Tampa Bay has actually gotten a good haul back from their guys.
Yeah.
But it's also really funny. It's like the day, like, here's the funny thing. Like, when he was like, Rosarena was traded to the Mariners. And by the way, remember that World Series game in 2020 when Brett Phillips hit a walk-off single?
Yes.
Okay, so in that deal, it was a 2-run single, and Brett Phillips hit that single. He's somewhere else. Kevin Kiermaier, I think, was the first run that scored. He was the tying run that scored. He's with the Blue Jays. And now Rosarena is now with the Mariners. All 3 players from that play, one of the most favorite plays for all Rays fans out there, all gone. But it was pretty funny seeing Rosarena actually watching the Rays game that day as a fan, because he didn't go out to Seattle right away. That was funny. Also, this isn't trade deadline related because I don't think the Rockies are going to trade him. And the Red Sox did trade for a catcher, and they released Reese McGuire. And then there was a fight that happened between the Red Sox and Rockies a few days ago. Did you see this, or did you?
Yes, and I saw what the pitcher said, and I will not repeat it here.
Yeah, we're not saying it, but just if you know what Reese McGuire did a few years ago, the pitcher Cal Quantrill shouted at him what he did.
Yes,
and
you can find it in a 5-millisecond Google search.
Yep. But it's going to be interesting. So, I think so next week we're going to talk more about the Olympics. We're going to talk more about some of these other trades that have happened. NFL training camp has officially started for all teams. Well, Lamar had a sickness the last few days. Some of those tests came back negative. So he seems to be good to go. I don't know what it is, but Lamar always gets sick. I don't know if it's the chicken Alfredo he eats like as a routine. I don't know if it's the McDonald's he has typically for most games, but he stays healthy, but he gets sick every once in a while. Hopefully, this is just that one time he gets sick a year. And I think Eddie Jackson, we now know the contract terms for him: 1 year, $1.5 million. That's actually a pretty good value for him. So. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We'll see, like I said, probably Olympics, trade deadline, and I'll see you guys next week.
Yep, we'll see you next week.